Jay here for Stretford, Paddock, and this is the Tier 1 Transfer Podcast. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Ronaldo Brown. Ronaldo, how are we doing?
I'm doing all right. As I said, every time that we win, I'm doing all right.
Yeah, he's got a smile on his face, so something's going right. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you there. But coming up, we've got an interview with Paul Hirst from The Times. He's going to be giving us the latest on Jadon Sancho and Manchester United's other transfer targets, because believe it or not, we actually do have other targets than Jadon Sancho. Yeah, but before that, you've been looking at some of the other Tier 1 transfer news, and what have you got for us?
Well, obviously the most recent one, obviously you slightly mentioned this morning, was what Romano has said about the current Sancho proceedings, which are the ongoing proceedings.
It never ends.
But saying that the issue is, we know that there's obviously a bit of a disagreement or a disparity in where they want the deals done between United and Dortmund. And obviously Romano's been on the book saying how Zorc has mentioned, I'm going to call him Zorc.
So that's the sporting director,
right?
Michael Zorc.
Dortmund has said that United aren't happy with the fact that there's been a third-party agent involved. Steven Lichtsteiner's brother, which is very odd. We only found out this morning. United would much rather have liked the deal being direct from United to Dortmund, and that's been one of the many stumbling blocks along the way, other than the view, regardless of the fee, which has obviously been the problem as well, with Dortmund wanting more money than United are willing to pay straight up. But as for the deadline that they also had, Romano said that the deadline might not mean all too much. It might, which from our own way, I'm not going to say Romano said it, we're suggesting that just might be a little bit of a brinkmanship and a bit of propaganda in terms of just the negotiating process. But that's where we're pretty much at with the Sancho thing. He's back in training as well, and as of now, Dortmund are planning ahead with him. But what is your take on it all? I know you've got many.
Well, I mean, you've spoken a lot about this, and I always felt that 10th of August deadline was almost meaningless, to be honest with you. I don't for 1 minute think that if Manchester United on the 11th of August or whenever came up with the fee, that Dortmund were going to say, well, no, that's it, now you've missed your chance. We know that there's a long way to go in the transfer window, so I expect it to rumble on. You mentioned earlier, you've got intermediaries, you've got these agents that have got involved and that are doing it between the clubs, which seems to be more of a hindrance than a help at the minute. It seems to be acting as sort of a bit of an obstacle. So it is rumbling on. You know, we, as always, we keep sort of checking the usual sources and the reliable, the Tier 1 sources, and everyone's pretty much on the same page, saying that it's not over. Yeah, Paul Hirst
we've got on, but it's kind of a strange one.
Gets to that as well.
Strange one is it's mentioned how with Dortmund in the past, it seems United and Dortmund have had usually seamless records when it comes to dealings with each other.
Yeah, Paul Hirst, and we'll get to that. He did say that, didn't he? He said the clubs have a good relationship, that the executives have a good relationship.
Mkhitaryan,
Kagawa. There was no dramas there, really. But obviously, this is a little bit different, and those were big transfers, but this is, potentially the biggest British transfer fee ever, or around that figure. So we'll have to wait and see with that one, and it will rumble on, unfortunately. But hopefully it'll have the conclusion we all want, which is Jadon Sancho playing for Manchester United. What else have you got for us? You've been looking at the other ones as well.
6 hours ago, it was also mentioned by Romano, the guy that Here we go. Those three magic words. We kind of, as United fans, obviously looking at what our rivals have been up to, because I know we've got to be focused on our own deals, but if our neighbours, obviously hypothetical in terms of rivalry aspects.
If the rivals, I get where you're coming from.
In terms of tabling.
Yeah, if the rivals,
top 4, top 5,
are strengthening, then it does affect us.
It's surrounding, obviously it's gone a bit cold recently with the Havertz.
This Havertz to Chelsea, which even a few days ago looked like done deal.
Done deal, and it looked like it was done. It looked like it pretty much was definitively happening. Havertz seemed keen on it, and it looked like a deal that Chelsea and Leverkusen were going to be able to obviously see through. But it kind of went plateaued and went completely cold and stale going into the Europa League game that they played yesterday. But Romano's been actually on the report saying that now that Leverkusen were knocked out yesterday, that the deal and talks will very much are back on now, and it could come to quite a quicker conclusion than you think. So it's one to keep an eye on with Havertz to Chelsea, and we've been mentioning it week in, week out with the fact that they've strengthened so much already after their transfer ban, and then being alongside us and kind of are strive back to the top, they could look a bit more dangerous, and that's why we need to.
I mean, it does pain me a little bit to say that, because you want to be going, well, what are, we're looking at City, we're looking at teams above us, Liverpool, unfortunately. But we have to be realistic, and I've always said that I think finishing third next season is going to be even more difficult because Chelsea are going to strengthen a lot. And we've seen that, they've gone out already. Yeah. They've started buying players, Werner and the other lad, Ziyech. And now Havertz looks like it's another one happening. So it is one, as always, to keep your eye on and just see where they're up to. And hopefully, from our point of view, it gives us, our board, a little bit of a nudge and says, look, you've got to fix up and improve as well, because the teams around us are all improving, and we can't just, rely on the team that we've had or the squad that we've had last season to carry us through next season. Any more? Anything else?
Are we interested in Liverpool?
They've signed someone, haven't they?
I think we've just signed. The reason I'm Bournemouth one is I'm not going to try to pronounce his name properly. So
I get in all sorts of trouble when I try pronunciation.
So they've signed a man called Kostas Tsimikas.
Well, I've never heard of him. But that doesn't mean I'm not saying anything, because there's lots of players I've not heard of.
Can't be that relevant, but
they're in a different position though.
They're in a different position,
aren't they? Because they're just sort of augmenting the squad, adding to the squad, not really necessarily having to buy players that are going to come in to the first team. Unlike Manchester United, and as we said earlier, we spoke to Paul Hirst about Jadon Sancho, about other United targets, and here's what he had to say. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good, lads.
I'm good. Listen, there's no point in beating around the bush. The question that is coming and that everyone's asking about, and obviously you recently did an article at the time recording this where you said that United remain hopeful of signing Jadon Sancho. Just give us an update where you feel the deal is and how far the two parties are away from making it happen.
It's surprising, because I thought you were going to ask me about Phil Jones or something else like that first. That's the real story, isn't it? Jadon Sancho is, it's the talk of the town, isn't it? It's the biggest transfer of the summer, and it's heated up quite a lot recently, hasn't it? Last couple of weeks since the window opened, it's got the scrutiny on that deal has intensified, and on Monday. But Dortmund came out and said, very publicly, that's it, it's done. Michael Zorc was saying Jadon Sancho will play for us next season. United have essentially missed their chance to sign him because of this deadline that they imposed. But we learned after that United still think that they will, they still think they've got a chance of signing him, and they just see it as a kind of a part of the game, this game of chess that's going on between United and Dortmund. One side saying one thing, one side saying another. But the upshot of it is that United still think they can get him. And, you can see their reasoning why. There's 2 months left of the transfer window yet. Unfortunately for people like me, I have to write about it every day. But it's, so there's plenty of time to go yet. So United see this as kind of a part of the, the brinkmanship that goes on with big transfers like this.
And do you think it's simply the fee or the nature of the fee, or do you think it's just a bit of both in terms of like the way they're trying to structure the deal with the add-ons, etc., rather than just paying 120 mil straight up, or do you think it's just a bit of both?
I think it is a bit of both. I don't think you'll find United spending 110 million, certainly not on one player in one lump. You've got to remember that although they are very rich, very cash rich, if you look at the books, etc., they're missing out on 75,000 people going through that gate every weekend, aren't they? So that's a lot of money that they're down at the moment. So COVID has had a big impact on United. So they won't put all that money down in one go for Sancho. I think they were hoping that instalments would be the way forward, the add-ons, etc. And Dortmund obviously want more money up front. They've also been heavily impacted by COVID, and as we found out yesterday as well, Sancho's actually contracted till 2023, not 2022. So that makes them puts them in an even stronger position. Dortmund. Why should they sell him for for like 60 with another 10 million in add-ons every 6 years? It's just they won't do a deal like that. They want more of the money up front. And United want to pay, a decent amount of that, 110 million or whatever in instalments.
How sort of determined do you feel Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is to get Sancho? I mean, I know he's not going to be sort of sat there as part of the negotiations, but I imagine he's made it pretty clear to United that he sees Sancho as a big part of the future plans.
Yeah, he does. I mean, he loves him, and you can see why. I mean, his stats are ridiculous, aren't they, Sancho? And just the way that he plays on instinct. He gets bums off seats. He's a really thrilling attacking player. And Solskjaer also wants competition in that squad. Mason Greenwood has been brilliant, hasn't he, in that right wing position? But if he gets injured or if he has a run of poor form, who have you got in backup? Daniel James. I think he scored one league goal. He's not scored a league goal since August last year, so that's worrying for him. And if United want to take it to that next step, if they want to get up to challenging City and Liverpool, they need two strong players for each position. And also, I think if they sign Sancho, you've got more chance of putting Greenwood in down the middle as well, which is another area that United don't really have that much strength in reserve. So it's just about options, about competition for places. Just developing the depth of the squad as well is something that Ollie's keen on doing.
You sort of leads me on to my next point, because you mentioned there Mason Greenwood, and some people may look at it and go, well, Greenwood's having such a great season and such a good end to the season that maybe, it wouldn't be the end of the world if we don't get Sancho, but that's not the thinking. The thinking is Ollie wants competition, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. The more competition for places, the better, and his flexibility as well. He can change the formation. I mean, I'd love to see Martial and Greenwood as a two up front. If he did end up playing two up front, that would be a great combination for me with Sancho and Rashford coming off the wing. That's mouthwatering, isn't it, as a prospect? But yeah, I mean, Greenwood's only 18, isn't it? This is his breakthrough season. So at the end of the day, United are relying on a teenager to drag them through, and you don't know what young footballers. You can't really map their career out. Greenwood is the most exciting player to come through that academy since Fergie retired. But what's to say he pulls his hamstring and then it kind of niggles at him for a few matches, and then he has to have an operation and it drags on. It can happen, especially with the way that he is as an explosive player, and he might go through a dip of form as well. So they need strength in reserve, and at the moment they just don't have that.
Have United been kind of identifying any alternatives to Sancho? Obviously, we've heard that there's a possibility we could be linked to Kingsley Coleman on loan. Do you think that's a valid target, or is that just simply a rumour?
I think he is someone that they've looked at. Certainly, he's a very good player, very exciting player. Someone that Man City have looked at in the past as well. And it'd be remiss of United not to have backup options, wouldn't it? They can't just go. I don't think it's Sancho or bust. There are alternatives out there that they've looked at, and they've made it clear that they will start looking at those players if the deal drags on. Because this is another thing with the Sancho deal, that United are annoyed with the way that it has dragged on with the pace of negotiations. They don't like the fact that Dortmund have got Marco Lichtsteiner, Stefan Lichtsteiner's brother, involved in the deal as well. He's been assigned as a third-party agent by Dortmund to do this deal, when United would have preferred to do the deal directly with Dortmund. They've got actually quite a good relationship with Dortmund. They play each other quite a lot in pre-season friendlies, and from what I hear, they have these banquets they have before matches with the execs, that they get on quite well with each other. The Mkhitaryan deal was quite straightforward to do as well in the end, so that shows that there is a good relationship between the boards. So, but now they've got this other guy involved that they don't really know that well. So that's a bit of a bone of contention for United at the moment, and I think they would ideally like to deal directly with them.
Sticking on the topic of transfers, how many players do you expect United to actually sign this summer? What are the areas that you think Ollie wants to strengthen most? Obviously, we're talking about the right wing. Do you think there's any other areas in the pitch that United may look to strengthen as well?
I think centre half is kind of a big one, really. I think it's more. I think people don't realise how much they need to strengthen in that position. I mean, I know there is 7 centre halves on the books, but you go through them, and for me, Maguire's been excellent this season. Been fantastic. Lindelof, I'm not so sure about. He does have the odd bad game, and his heading's not as good as it could be. And then you look at the reserves again. It comes down to competition for places. The strength in depth just isn't there, is it? Bailly, he's definitely, no one can doubt his passion, but he's injury prone, isn't he? Phil Jones is injury prone as well. He's not even out here in Cologne. He's injured. Axel Tuanzebe is a fantastic player, but we've not seen him at all this season due to injury. And then who have you got? Chris Smalling, again, had a great season on loan at Roma, but his passing's just not up to scratch, is it? If you compare it to the rest of the, if you compare it to Maguire, you look at how City play it out from the back. I mean, there's absolutely no nerves at all. Just bang, bang, bang. They just ping it around, and I just can't see Smalling doing that. Then who have you got? Rojo. He's just not good enough, is he? So he's really only got one. For me, he's only got one reliable centre half in Maguire. So that's an area they need to strengthen. I think again maybe a number 10 is another one that they're looking at, because again you scratch beneath the surface. And who have you got? Lingard, Pereira. I mean, Juan Mata played brilliantly last night, but he's not going to play. He's not going to start 40 matches for you, is he? I think he's 32. So that's another area that they will strengthen if they can find a reasonable price and a reasonable target.
Paul, are United still doing the thing of take it of one transfer at a time? That seems to be the policy here, that they only do one deal at a time. We saw it last summer where it was James and Maguire, then Wan-Bissaka. Is that the policy? And do you feel that is a hindrance at all? The fact that it's you're only looking at one deal or negotiating one deal at a time?
I think they are doing that, yeah, but I don't think that means that they're not talking to other people as well. You look at, Matt Judge will be involved in doing this Sancho deal, but he does have people working under him as well who will be, talking to agents and talking to, other contacts in the scouting department as well. So it's not just a case of, right, we've got to do, one at a time. I think they will be. I know for a fact that they are talking to agents for the centre halves as well. So it's not just, he's not like laser, focused on just doing one deal and then that's it. They will be looking at others and talking to others at the same time. And they need to, don't they? Because, the start of the season is only a few weeks away, isn't it? Ridiculously. So he's got to kind of clear out this deadwood in the squad and bring in these, 2 or 3 players to improve the squad in that time as well. So he's got his work cut out, definitely.
Any idea who those centre-halves may be?
They like Pau Torres, the young lad from Villarreal. He's left-footed, can pass the ball very well. He's very, very calm on the ball. I think he's got a €55 million release clause in his contract, and that would be problematic for United. I think they'd like to buy him for a little bit, they'd like him to be a little bit cheaper. So yeah, there's still a chance that deal could get done. But I think that depends a lot on whether they can get rid of Smalling, Jones, and Rojo as well. Because that is, if you do a deal, if you get rid of those players, just think of the wages alone that you'd save, the money you'd save from wages alone. Like Rojo's on 160 grand a week, I think, which is remarkable, really, and shows how poor they've been in terms of dealing contracts in the past. So yeah, if centre half, Torres, I think they'd have more chance of getting him if they got rid of Smalling, Jones, and Rojo.
Yeah, you just basically mentioned and segue perfectly into the next question about United's deadwood, and he basically suggesting that they need to get rid of him before they look at other options. But who do you actually see definitively leaving? Because you wrote recently about the fact that United might actually not have that many buyers for the deadwood that we've currently got in the squad. But who do you actually see being able to leave?
Yeah, I think you would struggle to find a buyer for Phil Jones at the moment because he can't get fit and he's got a long contract. Rojo, again, he's on 160 grand a week and, he's not played very well for, consistently for a while. So I think they're probably going to struggle to get rid of those two. Smalling, I think he's more marketable, isn't he? I think he had a brilliant season at Roma. I know I had to go at him a little bit earlier about his passing, but he's a class centre half. If you've got 10 million for him, something like that, I think he's not a bad sign, is he? So they need to get rid of those 3, don't they? United traditionally haven't been very good at selling players, remember talking to someone who works with Jose Mourinho, and he was saying during his time at United, that was the one thing that annoyed him more than anything else, that they just couldn't get rid of players. Darmian was in the departure lounge for about 2.5 years, wasn't he, basically? And they couldn't get rid of him until Ollie came. So you're looking at those three. I mean, for me, I don't know this for a fact, but you look at the right back situation and you think one of Fosu-Mensah or Dallow's probably got to go as well. I mean, Dallow's not. When he first came, he looked such a good player, but he's fallen off the radar completely this season, mainly due to injury, I think. So that's, Fosu-Mensah's not really shown, that he's top level over the last few games. So that's probably another area that they need to get rid of one of those two. I think Brandon Williams is probably a better right back than he's a left back as well, to be honest. So he can shift over to that side. But yeah, Chong probably go out on loan as well. And then they'd probably listen to offers for Lingard as well, just because I think he's got 1 year left. And I think if anyone needs a fresh start from that squad, it's Lingard, isn't it? He just looks a bit kind of lost at the moment, and he didn't come on last night until very late in the match, which kind of showed you where he is in the pecking order. So I think that they would listen to offers for him as well.
Will United demand decent money for these players, or is it just a case of getting them off the books?
I think they will demand fees for him, but they've got to be realistic, haven't they? In this climate, no one's going to pay 20 million for Marcus Rojo, are they? No one's going to pay 30 million, 40 million for Jesse Lingard. So I think they will be more inclined to do cheaper deals, but than they would do normally, just because of the pandemic. But again, I think the main issue is not the fee; it's the wages. It's you look at some clubs in the Premier League, their top earners, their star players won't be earning as much as Rojo is. So I think you'll find a situation where United will have to actually continue paying some of these players, even though they get them off the books.
Yeah, definitely. Just a couple more questions, Paul. I just wanted to ask you a little bit about director of football, because this is a story that it pops up almost every summer. We hear that United are after a director of football. We saw it last summer with names like Rio Ferdinand, Darren Fletcher and Patrice Evra being linked with a job, and then it goes quiet again. What's the latest with that? Do you get any feeling that United are still in the hunt for a director of football?
I don't think so, no. I think it's gone, like you say, it's gone cold a little bit recently. I think it was sort of the start of 2019, not so long after Ollie came in, that Woodward started talking to people. He had like informal chats with Darren Fletcher and Rio Ferdinand, but nothing came of it. I think from what I hear, the people that were spoken to about that position, they came away thinking like they didn't really understand what Woodward was after. What kind of role that person would be, and it was all just a bit vague, basically. So I don't think it'll happen. Partly because they're quite happy with the system they've got. Ollie goes to the scouting team, says, "Look, I need for example, a right winger." They'll come up with sort of like 50 targets from their database. Then sort of Marcel Boot and Jim Laurel and other like senior scouts will whittle it down to 10, and then they go from there. Really, the recruitment team have a veto. The manager has a veto on the recommended players, and then negotiations start. So, I mean, I don't really know where does a technical director fit into that? Do you know what I mean? They're all, as long as they're all singing from the same hymn sheet, which they appear to be. They all want these attacking, young, hungry players in the team. That they're the targets. So as long as they all want those, and I don't really see what difference a technical director would do. It's in danger if they were to appoint someone. They'd be in danger of just becoming like a glorified ambassador, which is not what a technical director would want to do himself, and it's not what it'd just be a waste of time and money for the club, I think.
That more or less asks what I was going to ask you, whether it'd make much of a difference, but you've answered that in case, in the sense that you feel it'd be more of a sort of figurehead or an ambassadorial role than an actual hands-on technical director. Paul, it's been great chatting to you. I really appreciate that, and you're over there in in Germany as well, watching United. And just quickly, what did you make of it so far? What did you make of it last night?
It was a long 120 minutes, wasn't it? It was kind of not just because it was hot. I mean, God, it was sweltering. But that's first world problems and all that. It was a hard fought match. I mean, the Copenhagen keeper had an absolute worldie, didn't he? He played really well, and they seemed a bit more up for it than United. I don't know whether United are kind of tailing off towards the end of the season or whether it was the heat. But they were kind of 5, 6 out of 10, but they got the win, and then they're still obviously two wins away from lifting their first trophy under Ollie. So I think they'll be more accustomed to the heat when the semi-finals come around, and they'll be more up for it as well. So they've still got a decent chance of winning it. Good
stuff, Paul. Thanks a lot for chatting to us.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Cheers. So lots of things there from Paul Hirst. He's really good, actually. Wasn't he? He was
great man.
Pretty. Great man. Yeah, a great man.
No, in both ways, great, man.
Oh right, sorry, great man. I thought you meant he was a great man.
Great, man.
Yeah, no, he was. He obviously knew a lot what he was talking about there. He was saying about Sancho. We sort of know where we're up to with that. Yeah. The Dortmund would sell him. United wanted him. He would come. Again, though, it's as we've spoken about. There's agents involved, and there's that sort of intrigue there that could be holding the deal up a little bit. But Ole Gunnar Solskjaer definitely wants Jadon Sancho. United want him. United fans want him. So we'll just have to wait and see where that goes. Go on.
So with the Sancho deal, obviously, as he mentioned, his contract is until 2023. So
that was like a new thing almost, wasn't it? Because everyone was saying 2022, weren't they? And then when Zorc came out, I think it was on Monday, and he said, because at first he said he signed a new deal, and everyone was like, oh, he signed a new deal, having a meltdown. But he'd signed that last summer to bring him up to, I think, June 2023, which, basically means Dortmund aren't desperate because he's got 3 years left in his contract. Yeah.
There's literally no pressure for Dortmund to sell him. And it's not like we have a disgruntled player that wants to leave. No. I know there's been kind of...
Well, there's been suggestions that he might put a transfer request in, but I don't know how solid those rumours are.
As of now, he's not come out and said, I want to leave, I want to go United. It's not... So he's just sitting around waiting to see what happens, and there's no real pressure for them to sell him. And if there's rumours that if they wait until next season, then it diminishes his value. But because obviously his value is going to be higher in terms of transferring because of the fact he's got so many years left on his contract anyway. But one of the issues if you leave it until next season is that next season it may become a thingy, a bidding war then. That's what it's.
I mean, is someone else going to come in? I mean, that can go either way, though, because from Dortmund's point of view, they can look at it and go, well, if we do wait, next season, United might turn their attention somewhere else. We might not have someone who's willing to pay 100 million because the market's so volatile with, obviously, coronavirus and the pandemic. The crowds aren't back in the ground yet. And United may look at it and go, well, if we do wait, as you say, someone else could come in. So it's brinkmanship, we keep saying, and it's a word that's used a lot, but it does seem that both United and Dortmund are digging the reels in a little bit.
Timely post on Twitter last night.
I did see that.
A little bit of propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really mind a bit of that. It's sort of, I get it. He's still their player, and they want to rub it in a little bit. Fair enough, and I won't care about it as long as we get him. Another lad that he mentioned there, moving away from Sancho, if we were allowed to, was he mentioned the young lad Torres, Paul Torres, the Villarreal defender. That was a new one for me. I didn't know that United were in for him, but
United have been linked to him quite.
Right, well, it's just me missing out there.
Yeah,
not doing my research well enough.
Quite sporadically, obviously we heard recently about the Gabriel, but there was interest in Paul Torres as well. And the reason why they were interested in the likes of Gabriel and Paul Torres is because it's been quite obvious with United's backline and centre half pairings is that sometimes there could be a lack of athleticism there, a little bit of speed, a little bit of pace, a little bit of agility. You've got Maguire and Lindelof to kind of. I know you said like last week that. What does Maguire turn like?
I didn't say it on camera like a tanker in a canal or something. I can't remember what it was, But I don't want to be too harsh on Harry Maguire because he's not that type of player. He's brought in to do a job. And he's doing the job that he was brought in to do.
They're saying that if we bring in a centre back that offers a little bit different from the other two, then you've got a certain balance, and that's what Paul Torres brings because he's quite he's known for being quite quick. He's obviously good on the ball. He's got that Spanish comfortability on the ball as well, but he's also a very quick man with statistically. I remember seeing that he clocked a quicker sprint speed last season than the likes of Vinicius Junior, Lionel Messi, Griezmann, and there was one more attacking player actually. I think Rodrigo as well.
So he can shift.
So he can shift for a big guy.
Sounds like the ideal
man.
Compliment to Harry Maguire, because as Paul Hirst sort of he went through all our defenders there, didn't he? To be fair, he named them all one by one and sort of gave his reasons why United can't necessarily rely on them. You know, I don't need to repeat what he says, but we know the issues you've got with by his injuries. Lindelof can have the odd game where you question, and the other defenders who aren't really in the mix, and we're a little bit away from the likes of Tenen Mengi or Axel. We don't know what's happening with him as well. So, you know, it makes sense that we're being linked with someone like, obviously, as you said, a very talented and quick young player. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one. As always, we will be giving you updates on Stretford Paddock. We'll also have more guests lined up for the Tier 1 Transfer Podcast. That's been Ronaldo Brown. I've been Jay. This has been Stretford Paddock. Don't forget to hit like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.